And welcome back, listeners, bookworms. I forgot that that's what we called you all, you wonderful, wonderful cause nerds. You're here for us to read and discuss chapters 3 and 4, and hopefully not bore you. Just need to get that rhyme out. It felt good.
Okay.
All right. Joining us once again for our Wind and Truth series is the Sandbox, Trevor. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. You bring a level of erudition that I am not able to spend on this at the moment. So,
Arrow wooden?
erudition, studying,
Third grade words, okay? Please. Okay, don't have an aneurysm over there.
That one works. You. Okay. Griff is not with us currently, and you and you and I and Trevor will be surprised when and if he joins us today. So, we would like to make an announcement about the Cosmere RPG. Last week, we did say it was the Stormlight RPG. That is incorrect. Brandon Sanderson and Brotherwise Games pulled a fast one on us. It is the Cosmere RPG. They will be bringing all of the Cosmere worlds into it over time. It's a living RPG.
I'm still upset about it.
Yeah.
When I thought I was out of a Sanderson Kickstarter, finally, throws me back in.
So go check it out. They have so they knew that they would be successful. So they are releasing updates every day and stretch goals every
other day.
Every other day. So far, every day except 2 have had stretch goals released. So this is big. They will definitely have. Don't spend money if you don't have it. That's Sanderson's goal. Most, if not all, of these things will be available after the Kickstarter ends. Shipping is not going to be till next September for the first wave, and then Mistborn stuff a year after that. So, like always, you're not really going to miss out. You will be able to purchase these things later. And then if anybody didn't see off the 17th Shard interview with Johnny O'Neill from Brotherwise Games, the Mistborn deck builder coming out in November will be available in normal retail in the US in November. It's not a Kickstarter. It's a full game in and of itself. So look out for that. I'm hoping to pick up a copy, definitely play it with my wife, have people sign cards at the con. It'll be great. All right. So with that, I think, Trevor, do you have anything else?
Nothing for me.
All right. We are going to get into this. We have a couple of really wonderful chapters. Over the last week, we did find out that in the Spanish version of the chapters, the wind is the female form, and we were speculating like crazy. And I have great news for all of you listening today. So stick around to the end of chapter 4. This is going to be a good one. All right. If you go ahead and mute, I will begin my reading. Chapter 3. The Cost of Heroism. The wind told me, before she vanished, that it was the change in Odium's vessel that restored her voice. I wonder, perhaps it is the new storm, making people begin to reconsider that the wind is not their enemy. From Knights of Wind and Truth, page 3. Shallan and Pattern left Testament to rest and crossed the wall at Lasting Integrity to meet with Adolin, Maya, and the Herald Kalek, who were speaking with a kind of spren that Kalek called a Seon. She manifested as a hovering ball of light, roughly the size of a head, with an odd symbol at the center. Other than them, the wall top was empty today. You don't remember? Pattern asked softly as he and Shallan walked. The events with Testament? I thought you did. I thought with Vale gone. Vale is not gone, Shallan said. She is a part of me, like she always was. I don't understand. It's hard to explain, Shallan said. And I'm not sure I've entirely figured it out. Healing is not an event pattern, but a process. I've incorporated Vale into myself, so she doesn't take control any longer, but she's not gone. Vale is me, but Vale is not always Shallan. But you are Shallan. Imagine it as Vale moving to the back of the wagon as we ride toward the future. She's still there, coaching me, and we're both aware of the world. There was more to it than that, of course. Shallan had projected some uncomfortable aspects of herself onto Vale. Now she had to face them. She'd worried that Adolin would find it difficult, but, well, Adolin Kholin was storming wonderful. After their discussion last night, he seemed to understand. Together, they knew that there was work to do, but Shallan had taken an enormous step toward healing, and along with it had acknowledged something important. She didn't deserve hatred, but understanding. It was hard to believe, but Vale insisted they try anyway. But, Pattern said, Radiant is still separate? More separate, Shallan said. So, still in the front of the wagon. Yes, that might change. It might not need to change. I'm figuring this out as I go, Pattern, but I feel better. More importantly, I no longer need Vale to stand between me and the memories. So you do remember? Yes and no, Shallan said. It's a jumble. I was young, the events were traumatic, and there is so much pain associated with memories of my mother. I need time to process. Humans are squishy. Not just bodies. Minds too. Memories too. Ideas too. He sounded pleased by that. As a child, she'd bonded a spren, something her mother had not liked. A man had come, either to hurt Shallan or to separate her from Testament. Her father had fought him, and during their struggle, Shallan's mother had come at her with a knife. In self-defense, Shallan had killed her mother with an early manifestation of Testament as a shard blade. Shallan, in trauma, had rejected her nascent oaths and buried those memories. But if her bond with Testament had never been fully broken, what did that mean? And the memories of the days between her mother's death and the arrival of Pattern, which of those involved Testament? I knew I had a shard blade, long before I'd bonded Pattern. She'd convinced herself that the weapon belonged to her father and had been kept in his safe. She'd gone there before leaving home and had drawn it out to dismiss it, ignoring that she'd instantly summoned it when reaching her hand in, pretending it was an ordinary blade, pretending she needed 10 heartbeats to summon it. However, a part of her had known even then that it was Testament, a friend to whom she'd done great harm. That was the one thing Shallan clearly remembered. Testament was her friend, a dimpled pattern on the wall that had delighted, then engaged, then protected a young girl. Testament had never been as talkative as Pattern. Indeed, Shallan could only remember rare, soft fragments of speech, encouraging her to stand against the darkness in her family. Shallan had loved her mysterious spren dearly. Though her memories were jumbled, the emotions shone through the pain. Strength could be a matter of perception sometimes. and today Shallan found she could choose strength. They approached Adolin, Maya, and Kalek. Shallan still found it incredible this man was one of the heralds of the Almighty. The short, balding fellow kept rubbing his hands together, as if washing them in invisible soap and water. Adolin and Maya practically towered over him as they talked to the ball of light. Maya was obviously paying attention. She wasn't completely healed. Her eyes were scratched out and her coloring was a wan brown instead of a vibrant green like others of her kind. But she was getting better. She no longer wandered off or just stared blankly during conversations. She was also starting to talk more and more. "I worry about what is to come," the ball of light was saying. It had transformed into an approximation of Wit's face, made of soft blue-white light, and spoke with his voice. The Spren was a way to contact him, as they'd discovered a few days ago. "The war is set to intensify, and all rests upon the contests of champions. Odium's chosen warrior versus whoever old Dalinar chooses." "Father will choose himself," Adolin said. "When the Blackthorn needs to be certain something is done right, he will do it himself." Adolin paused, then glanced at Maya. "Storm him. He probably is our best chance, though." "Wit?" Shallan said. "It's really happening?" "It is indeed," he said. "The contest is set, contracts agreed to. Shallan, they've set it for 10 days from now." "So soon?" Shallan asked. "Storms. Where?" "Urithiru," Adolin said, his arms folded. "They've already sent windrunners to fetch us. Should arrive today." Shallan chewed on that, trying not to feel emotional whiplash. It had taken weeks to reach lasting integrity, but windrunners could fly them back to Urithiru within the day, depending on how much stormlight they brought. She found herself eager to return. She'd had enough of the Honor Spren and their elitism. She missed blue skies and plants that didn't crinkle when you touched them. Though Shadesmore had a sun, it was distant and cold. She could never thrive here. Plus, as she'd indicated to Testament, she had work to do. "Wit," Shallan said, stepping closer. The glowing version of his face focused on her. "My brothers are safe? You're certain?" "Very certain, brilliant one," he said back softly. "You're sure the Ghostbloods will move against you?" "Yes," she said. After a year and a half of flirting with the Ghostbloods, she'd at last stepped up and said no. Doing so had essentially declared war on them. She found Adolin's hand for support. He knew the entire story now. "Wit, I know their faces, their plans. I'm likely the greatest threat on the planet to their organization, and they tried to kill Yasna for less. Everyone I love is in danger." "I have to manage Dalinar and try to prepare him," Wit said, "but I think I can help you as well. I've been watching Mraze's little crew. I'll send your people my drawings of their members, but take care, Shallan. I know this group and their leader. They can be brutal." "As can I," Shallan whispered. She glanced at Kalek, who was staring out over the bead ocean and the dead-eyed Spren who remained on the shore. Despite him, she felt safe here with Pattern, Adolin, and Maya. Safe enough to voice it. "Wit, I'm worried. Am I ready?" "I ask myself that same question now and then," he said. "And Shallan, I'm 10,000 years old." "During the trip," she said, "I started to create a new persona, Wit. Formless. A version of me. But..." How did she explain it? "A version of me with no face. A version of me who could do terrible things. I walked away from it, Wit, but that capacity is still inside me." "Shallan," he said, and she looked up, meeting his eyes. "If it weren't for that capacity, then what good would choices be? If we never had the power to do terrible things, then what heroism would it be to resist? But did you turn away? He asked, and Adolin squeezed her shoulder. Yes. Then heroism it is, Shallan. I'm remembering what I did to my mother, she said, and my father, and to a lesser extent, Tin, now Mraize. I'm going to have to kill him, Wit. Is that my destiny? To kill every person who ever mentored me? In that, finally, her fears found voice. Did it sound silly, foolish, ridiculous? This pattern she'd seen in her life? Wit did not laugh, though, and he considered himself an expert on what was ridiculous. Would that any of us, he said, could protect ourselves from the costs of heroism often requires. But again, if there were no cost, no sacrifice, then would it be heroism at all? I cannot promise you that it will be easy. But Shallan, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, Radiant whispered. I'm proud of you, Vale. The part of her that was Vale agreed. Thank you, she said. I have to go, Wit said, but I'll leave you with this. The Ghostbloods want something extremely valuable, and you have the key to it standing with you right now. If you want to destroy them, you might not need to kill every last one of them. Instead, you might simply need powerful leverage. The glowing spren shifted from his face back to a sphere. He's gone, the spren said. I'm sorry. His final words lingered with Shallan, reinforcing something she'd been considering, a way to protect Roshar from the Ghostbloods. And indeed, she knew what their next target was likely to be. They'd sent her to lasting integrity hunting the herald who stood next to her, and Kalek believed that the secret they truly sought was his knowledge of one of the unmade. I need, she said to Kalek, to know everything you know about Ba Edo Mishram. The herald wrung his hands, then looked to the side as if seeking escape. We're not going to hurt you, Adolin said calmly. You know that by now. I do, Kalek said. It's just, I wasn't supposed to be involved. None of us are. I don't think the other heralds follow that, Shallan noted, folding her arms. What did you do, Kalek? Not much, he said, putting his hand to his head. I can't do much these days. I don't know why. I can't decide. He looked up at them, then formed fists, pulling them close to his chest. I was at Urathiru when the plan to capture Mishram was conceived. Then I joined them on their mission. I guess I'm the only one alive who actually knows what happened to her. That's why the Ghostbloods and their cursed Lord of Scars want me. Just tell us, Shallan said. Some of us learned you could capture Spren in gemstones, he explained. And Mishram, for all her power, is a Spren. The Radiants prepared a flawless Heliodor, the color of sunlight, and they trapped her inside, then hid her prison. Not in the physical realm, and not in Shadesmar. He bit his lip, then forced out another part. In the spiritual realm, Malishi hid it there. How? Shallan asked, sharing a glance with Adolin. I don't know, Kalek said, backing away. I promise you, I don't know. But now they'll send more people for me, won't they? They'll trap me in a gemstone, or they think they'll be able to. He looked to the two of them, wide-eyed, then fled toward the way down. None of them gave chase. Unfortunately, this behavior was usual for Kalek. Maya grunted softly, watching him go. He's gotten a lot worse, she said. Shallan started. You knew him? Met him a few times, Shallan said, then took a deep breath. Never thought much of him even then. Well, Shallan said, at least we know something more about Mishram. I suspect her prison is part of what Mraize has been hunting for a long time now. I might need to find it first before he can. Bar Edo Mishram, Adolin said, thoughtful, leaning back against the wall's battlements. The most powerful of the unmade. What would the Ghostbloods want with her? Pattern said. Power. So much power. She was nearly a god. She bonded the singers once. Could Mraize want to do something similar again? Shallan shivered as she contemplated Mraize and his master, Eotil, somehow commanding the entirety of the enemy army. Was that possible? Whatever the reason, Shallan said, I have to stop him. Her prison is in the spiritual realm, though, Adolin said, frowning. What does that even mean? Pattern said. It means we'll never be able to find it. Surely it's possible, Shallan said. If the ancient radiants put it there, we should be able to take it out. You don't understand, Pattern said, holding his hands apart and gesturing in his way. You think Shadesmar is odd, yes? Black sky, little sun, pattern, with arms and legs for perambulating. His head pattern spun faster. The spiritual realm is stranger by orders of magnitude. It is a place where the future blends with the present, where the past echoes like the striking of a clock. Time and distance stretch like numbers infinitely repeating. It is where the gods live, and it baffles even some of them. Shallan took that in, then glanced at Testament, huddled in the shadow of the wall farther back along the wall. Our best guess, she said, is that the Deadeyes were created because Mishram was imprisoned, right? Agreed, Pattern said. Mishram became like a god to the singers, the Parshmen. She connected to Roshar, and echoes of that filtered to the Spren. Ah, so wonderfully odd. Her imprisonment is the reason broken bonds now have such an effect on the Spren. It is because, Maya said, humans have no honor. The god, I mean. I heard that Mishram had been captured. I heard that radiance would destroy the world. That was why I decided I was done. She shook her head. I don't know it all. I'd like to, considering what breaking the bond did to me. That day, the day Mishram had been captured, something deeper had happened. An event connecting humankind, honor, Spren, and the bonds. Then we need to figure out how Mishram, or her imprisonment, has power over our bonds, Shallan said, looking at Pattern. We need to go to the spiritual realm and find that prison, however difficult it is. His Pattern slowed, then finally he laced his fingers together. Very well. Though you know when I said I was sure you wouldn't get me killed? Yes. I should like, he declared, to make a retraction. And that's the end of chapter 3.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Love that Pattern voice as always. Hilarious.
Thank you. I loved really getting into the mind of Kalek, trying to make myself as nervous as possible.
He reminds me. He gives me like Professor Quirrell vibes, just like this jittery, like nervous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even the purple, like
yeah, the purple. Yeah.
yeah.
So a thought hit me at the epigraph that I was holding the whole time.
Oh.
And so Sanderson. So again, earlier in chapters 1 and 2, I said I am not a deep thinker when it comes to Sanderson stuff. I'm along for the ride, and then I talk about it afterwards. So often the things that Sanderson puts dead front and center, I will not see. Trevor, I have seen, and I would like to discuss.
Okay, what do you see?
In the epigraph, and I'm going to read it again because I love it so much.
Okay.
The wind told me before she vanished, that's one.
Yep.
That it was the change in Odium's vessel that restored her voice. I wonder. Perhaps it is the new storm, making people begin to reconsider that the wind is not their enemy. Here it is, man. Here it is. Dalinar is going to ascend. The Stormfather is going to be used up. And the old magic, wind... Oh, wait, we haven't gotten there yet. Sorry, spoilers for chapter 4 that's about to happen. So maybe we should hold this until then. The wind is going to become a new storm.
Not the Everstorm, but just the
storm,
current storm?
Yeah, maybe even blending the two, making a new storm. Because it says there's a new storm.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of cryptic language, like even in Rhythm of War, which I just reread recently. Yeah, there's a few lines where I'm like, what? I'm thinking about it too much, like move on. But I feel like there's definitely some stuff in there that's just foreshadowing that works on another level as well. And when we go back after this one, it's gonna be like, okay, I see what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a proponent of the new storm theory because he said it plain and simple. After Odium's vessel, so we know it's present day, which I'm only mentioning because of that conversation I briefly had with you earlier today, where I thought, hey, what if Nights in Wind and Truth was in the past? It's not. I corrected myself pretty quick. But right there, new storm.
So what's interesting to me here is that, kind of building off your point, is it seems like Odium is actually playing a bigger part in the wind. And there was something that you read, I can't remember exactly. It might have been to do with the read along, so I'll save it for the end.
Okay.
But it does seem like the wind, Odium, and maybe Ba'adu Mishram share a bigger connection.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to discuss after chapter 4. Definitely.
I do want to call out Reactor Mag if you're listening, or Tor or Sanderson. There is a typo.
There is. I straight read it.
I know. Was it the I'm proud of you Veil one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That Veil should not be italicized. Just saying. What's weird is that it wasn't in the original. I was comparing it to the old one that he read like 2 years ago.
Actually, I think he read it at C2E2, didn't he? A few months ago. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Oh, maybe. I think he read it at C2E2 because I was told about it and recently read it just a couple months ago in February.
It might have been me.
Yeah, you probably.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, it was.
But yeah, but still. So a pretty recent draft of it, I think he would have read, but still.
And there's like no changes in this one for the most part.
Yeah. Okay. We did get. I mean, we have it. The promise is clear, and that promise is that Shallan is going to do everything in her power to find Ba'adu Mishram to revive Testament.
And I feel like they're going to find something more than just Mishram in the spiritual realm. And I think that's going to be a lot of like, that's where you're going to get the Winters coming with like the Cosmere shenanigans.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, there's something there, you know? I think like craziest hot take, spicy theory that I can come up with, I feel like they're going to find Tanavast in the spiritual realm.
That would be cool.
There's the old adage, right? The rule for horror movies, which some of us love. I know that we both love them, but if you didn't see them die, then they're not really dead. Okay. We have not seen Tanavast die. Not to say that doesn't mean that doesn't rule it out, right? But he's been referenced, and we talked about this a little bit last week.
Right.
He's been referenced so much that we need some payoff for it. It's not going to be nothing, but whether that's just a connection with Kaladin and or Syl and or the Stormfather and or Beata Mishram,
right,
or just seeing him in some flashback, I feel like we're going to have to see him at some point.
I think let's see,
excluding Dragonsteel.
Right, excluding Dragonsteel. Did Dalinar see Tanavast in a vision once?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think it's possible that he might be the face of the Stormfather.
That's fair.
I also had a crazy theory for Kaladin, but I'll save it for the end of that one. That has to do with that face, but
got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then, yeah, this is, I mean, pretty big lore dump. Prose-wise, we all know that Sanderson likes to be as transparent as possible. I do feel, in terms of getting the story out, there are moments of transition that are a little quicker rate of transition than maybe other books.
It's breakneck sometimes.
Yeah.
Like just making a new paragraph or skip a line.
It feels like there may have been an opportunity to put in something to slow down the pace. Kind of like, I guess, when you're having a natural conversation with somebody, it eventually comes to a natural pause before somebody creates a new idea to speak.
What's your favorite flavor of cookies?
My favorite flavor of cookies is...
But yeah, no, that's just to your point. Like,
yeah, exactly. And so that's exactly it. There's no break in the reading of it to give that pause.
I think it's just a simple, he cut a line out.
Yep, I think so too.
Yeah.
But was it
he had to make that decision. Is it worth keeping this line in for that natural, or can we just keep it going? I think most of us are just like, just keep it going.
Yep.
Give us the story you want in the word count that you're allowed.
Yeah. Although it's still like him setting the scene like this, still very cinematic. I can see it playing out in my mind really well. And
do you think we're going to get a Sanderson cut?
It would be really cool if they did. If there were really big chunks, re-releasing those chapters online for free would be neat, I guess. Really small cuts.
Like if it was like 50,000 words extra, we'd be like, okay, give it to us. Or
if they split the words, or if they could do like the leather bound and split it into 2 volumes for that, and then do the Sanderson cut for that, I could see that. That would be funny. That would be cool.
I mean, that reminds me of us joking last week afterwards that we think Stormlight 10 will come in like 3 volumes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Part 1,
part 1, part 2, part 3. Oh man,
which is not far off from how Tolkien did it, from what I remember. Didn't he come up with all 3 books of all 3 of those books like a few months apart in the same year?
Did he come?
What was that?
Wait, say it again.
Didn't he release like the Fellowship, 2 Towers, Return of the King, like in the same year, but like a few months apart?
I expect that is the case because he actually wrote all of them, and they're actually 6 books. Each book is divided into 2.
Yeah.
And he wanted to publish it as 1 novel, if I remember correctly.
He wanted it to be 1. The publishers wanted it to be more.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that sounds not made up.
It's an age-old debate. Right. How many books is The Lord of the Rings?
6. I think it actually does say book 1 and book 2 of Fellowship.
It does, but I mean, that's like, you know, like Netflix calling their like series seasons chapters. Does that make it a book? No.
Right. Well,
I don't know.
But, well,
it's debatable.
We're
not going to get into it.
Straight up debatable. Yep, but that's not
Yeah.
what the bookworms / listeners came here to listen to.
It's not?
Is it? Dang it.
No.
Is this
All right.
Tuesday? No.
I'll shut up and mute myself. We'll get on to chapter 4.
All right.
Good stuff.
All right.
Cool.
Let me find chapter 4. All right. Chapter 4. Listening. I have read that in the ancient days, the wind often spoke to both human and singer. It would then mean that the wind stopped talking not because of odium, but because of people who began to fear her, or to worship the storm instead. From Nights of Wind and Truth, page 4. Kaladin soared up through the central column of Urithiru, still beside him. In the atrium, he still saw signs of the battle that had happened 2 days ago. Blood that hadn't been entirely scrubbed away. Broken banisters on balconies. That reminded him of another time he'd flown up this corridor, just after Teft's murder. Dark, poisoned rage building within. The feeling of a fraternal twin to the normal excitement of holding Stormlight. That man he'd become after killing the pursuer. That man frightened Kaladin. Even now, lit by calm sunlight. Remembering that man was like remembering a nightmare and caused pain-spread, like little severed hands, to appear on the balconies he passed, leaping off toward him. He banished those feelings as he landed on a floor near the top of Urithiru. As he alighted in the central chamber where the lifts deposited people, he noted a glow coming from a nearby room. "Navani," Syl whispered, her eyes wide. She went light blue, shrank down to Spren's size, and zipped off in that direction. There was something almost intoxicating about Navani, and her bond with the sibling, to Spren in the city. Syl would be back shortly. Kaladin forced himself to walk, not glide, over to Dalinar's meeting room. As soon as he left Urithiru, Kaladin would have to return to using Stormlight only when necessary. Best to get into that habit now. As he walked, the wind blew behind him, somehow present all the way within the structure, carrying with it his armor spren as ribbons of light. He didn't hear the wind's voice, but it urged him forward, and its warnings echoed in his mind. There was a small waiting room outside Dalinar's meeting room. Urithiru had more and more furniture these days, including a couch here. It was, unfortunately, taken up entirely by Wit, who lay face up, filling space that could have accommodated 3 people, his feet up on one armrest, reading a book and chuckling to himself while a large globe of light hovered beside him. Some kind of odd spren? "Ah, Weema," Wit mumbled, turning the page. "You finally noticed what a catch Vadam is. Let's see how you screw it up." "Wit?" Kaladin said. "I didn't realize you were back in the tower." It was probably a stupid thing to say. Yasna was here, so it made sense Wit had come along. Wit, being Wit, finished his page before acknowledging Kaladin. At last the lanky man snapped the book closed, then sat up and lounged on the sofa a different way, arms spread across the back, one leg crossed on the other, looking like nothing so much as a king on his throne. A very relaxed king on a rather cushy throne. "Well," Wit said, his eyes alight with amusement, "if it isn't my favorite flute thief." "You gave that flute to me, Wit," Kaladin said, sighing as he leaned on the doorframe. "Then you lost it." "I found it again." "Still lost it." "That's not the same as stealing." "I'm a storyteller," Wit said, with a flip of his fingers. I have the right to redefine words. That's stupid. That's literature. It's confusing. The more confusing, the better the literature. That might be the most pretentious thing I've ever heard. Aha! Wit said, pointing. Now you're getting it. Kaladin hesitated. Sometimes during conversations with Wit, he wished he had someone to take notes for him. So, Kaladin said, do you want your flute back? Hell no. I gave that to you, bridge boy. Returning it would be almost as insulting as losing it. Then what am I supposed to do with it? Wit said, reaching into a bag at his feet and slipping out a different flute, this one painted with a shiny red lacquer. He twirled it in his hand. If only there were something we could do with these curious pieces of wood. They have holes that seem intended for some arcane purpose, beyond the understanding of mere mortals. Kaladin rolled his eyes. If only, Wit continued, there were a way to learn to do something productive with this item. It has the look of a tool, nay, an instrument of mythical design. Alas, my poor, finite mind is incapable of comprehending the— If I don't interrupt, Kaladin said, how long will you keep going? Long, long past when it was funny. It was funny? The words? Wit said. Of course not. Your face while I say them, though? Well, it's been said I am an artist. Unfortunately, the primary subjects of my art can never experience my creations, as displayed upon their features. He flipped the flute, then held it out to Gallatin. Give it a try. It has the same fingerings as the one you lost and recovered, though not the same capacity. Wit, I can't play this flute any more than I could play the other one you gave me, Kaladin said. I have no idea how. So, Wit flipped the flute again, then extended it farther toward Kaladin. All you have to do is ask. I guess I do have to wait for Dalinar, Kaladin said, looking longingly at the closed door. Dalinar's meetings often overran, despite the many clocks Navani had given him. Kaladin felt an urgency to get to Shinovar, but if he wanted to fly all that way without using up a large sack of gemstones, which would be needed in the battle to come, he had to fly with the high storm, hours away yet. So he had time, and, well, Kaladin felt indebted to Wit. As infuriating as the man, or whatever he was, could be, when Kaladin had been in the worst darkness of the storm, Wit had traveled a nightmare to pull him free. This man was a friend. Kaladin appreciated him, quirks included, so he played the role Wit obviously wanted. Would you teach me? Kaladin said, taking the flute. I don't have a lot of time, but— Wit was already moving, whipping some sheets of paper from the bag by his feet. He waved for his strange ball spren to go away, and Kaladin's windspren followed, flitting out of the room as Kaladin glanced over the pages. They had odd symbols on them, which made Kaladin nervous, but Wit insisted it wasn't actual writing, merely marks on a paper representing sounds. It took Kaladin a few minutes to realize the joke. Still, over the next hour, Dalinar was really taking his time. Kaladin followed Wit's instructions. He learned the basics of fingering, of reading music, and, hardest of all, how to hold the thing and blow into it properly. At the end of the hour, Kaladin was able to force out a stumbling rendition of the first line of the music, with notes that sounded breathy and weak in comparisons to Wit's playing. It was an incredibly simple accomplishment, and he didn't attract a single music spren, yet Kaladin felt he had climbed a mountain. He was smiling in a stupid way as Syl, full-sized and wearing a hava with purple trim, peeked in to investigate. Based on the sounds I'm making, she's probably come to see who's stepping on a rat, Kaladin thought. Nice work, Wit said. Next fight, start up a bit of that. Surely the enemy will drop their weapons, probably just to cover their ears. If anyone asks about my skill, I'll be sure to tell them who my teacher is. Wit grinned. I know that song, Syl said, folding her arms. Wit played it for us on the Shattered Plains, Kaladin said, back when we first met him. The story of the Wandersail. I know it better than that, though, she said. Long ago, Wit said softly, that rhythm guided humans across the void from one planet to the other. They followed it to reach your world. One of the rhythms of Roshar, Syl said with a nod. Made into a song with the tones of the gods. Gods older than yours, Wit said from beside Kaladin on the couch. When you first played for us, Kaladin said, remembering that lonely night on the plateaus when he'd still been a bridgeman. I could swear the sound came back. You'd play, then talk, and the song would continue to echo. How did you do that? I didn't, Wit said. But ask yourself who was listening that night. Me, Syl, you, presumably, and some guards in the distance? Wit shook his head. Storms, how can you be from this land, yet be so dense? The wind, Kaladin guessed. The wind was listening. Wit smiled. Maybe you can be salvaged after all. Is the wind a god? Kaladin asked. When this world was created, Wit said, long before honor, cultivation, or odium arrived, Adonasium left something behind on it. Sometimes it's called the Old Magic. Sometimes that term is applied to the Night Watcher, who came, with cultivation's efforts, from one of those ancient spren. Listen to the wind when it speaks, Kaladin. It's weaker than it was, but it has seen so very much. It told me a storm was coming, Kaladin said, and asked for help. Then listen, Wit said, and the wind, she will listen to you in return, he winked. That's all I'll say about it. I'm not one to give away another's secrets. Lovely. Well, he'd done as Wit asked, so he returned the flute. Would Dalinar ever be done? It was a fun way to pass the time, Wit, but I have to ask. Music? What relevance does it have for someone like me? Ah, now there's a question for the ages, Wit said, leaning back. What use is art? Why does it hold such meaning and potency? I can't tell you, because the short answer is unappealing and the long answer takes months. I will instead say this. Every society in every region of every planet I've visited, and I've been to quite a large number, has made art. Kaladin nodded thoughtfully. Wit hadn't answered his question, but he was accustomed to that. Protesting would only lead to mockery. Perhaps the question isn't, what use is art? Wit mused. Perhaps even that simple question misses the point. It's like asking the use of having hands, or walking upright, or growing hair. Art is part of us, Kaladin. That's the use. That's the reason. It exists because on some fundamental level we need it. Art exists to be made. When Kaladin didn't respond, Wit eyed him. I can accept that, Kaladin said, as an explanation. It's a tautology. The more confusing the better, right? Wit grinned, and then it faded. He glanced at the door. Wit, Kaladin said, the wind asked for help, and Dalinar is worried about the coming battle. I get the feeling this next part is going to be difficult. Yeah, Wit said softly. I feel it too. A straight answer. Those were always disturbing. Do you have any words of wisdom? Kaladin asked. A story, maybe? Listen, Wit said. Everything you've done, Cal, everything you've been, has prepared you for what's next. It's going to be hard. Fortunately, life has been hard, so you're working under familiar constraints. Kaladin glanced to the side, where Wit was staring off into space, idly spinning the red flute in his fingers. Something in his voice. His face. You're talking, Kaladin said softly, as if one of us won't survive this. I wish I were optimistic enough to think one of us would survive. Wit, I'm pretty sure I've heard you say you're immortal. Immortality doesn't seem to go as far as it once did, kid. He glanced at Kaladin. Listen, if the wind wants your help, well, I think you can rise to what is coming. Probably. Difficult though it will be. Storms, Syl said, walking forward. I'm not sure I like it when he's serious, Kaladin. Dalinar is going to send you to Shinovar, Wit said, because he hopes Ishar can help with the contest of champions. Ishar can't help. Not like that. But you still need to go. Why? Kaladin asked. Why go if I can't do what I'm sent to do? Because this is your journey, Kaladin, Wit said softly. The last part of it. Listen to me. I want you to practice with that flute until you make the sound return to you, because that will mean Roshar is listening. What did that even mean? I think you've been reading too many stories, Wit. Riddles aren't actually helpful. Wit launched himself off the couch and crossed the room on legs that suddenly seemed spindly. The problem is, I don't actually know what the next part will entail. I have hints and thoughts, but mostly just worries. All I can do is point you toward what might be the correct path. That, and keep your hope strong. Yasna doesn't believe in hope, Syl whispered, stepping over by Kaladin. I heard her complaining about it once. Yasna would make an excellent wit, Wit said, pointing at Syl. She's the right combination of smart and stupid all at once. He smiled in a fond way, and Kaladin thought the rumors about them must be true. I'm confused, Kaladin said. What are you saying, Wit? That something is wrong, Wit said, stalking across the room and throwing his hands into the air. Something is horribly wrong and has been for several days now, and I can't figure out what it is. I've been waiting for the truth to come crashing down. I don't know what to do or who to pray for, since the only true God I've known is the one we rejected and killed. So I'm sending you off, Kaladin, hoping that if the wind spoke to you, then some piece of that ancient deity is watching, because when everything feels wrong, all I can do is hope. The passions, Syl whispered. Isn't that some old Thaylen religion? Kaladin said. Something about emotion? Derived anciently from the teachings of odium, Wit said. though it's not polite to point out to practitioners of the passions. People don't like hearing that their religion was mythologized, as if myth can't be true. Regardless, ancient daughter, I'd think better of you than to bring up the passions. Why? She said. Human religions are all a little silly, aren't they? Yes, Wit said, but the passions teach that if you aren't fervent enough, if you care enough. Sorry? Yes, Wit said, but the passions teach that if you are fervent enough, if you care enough, your emotion will influence your success, that if you want something badly enough, the Cosmere will provide it for you. Kaladin nodded slowly. There might be something to that. Kid, Wit said, leaning down to Kaladin, who still sat on the couch. The passions are absolute horseshit. What? It's good to be hopeful. The passions sound nice. The wrong people get far too much mileage out of things that sound nice, Wit said. Take it from a guy who was all too capable with a lie. Nothing is easier to sell someone than the story they want to hear. The passions are deeply insulting if you spare even a moment to consider. I once spoon-fed broth to a trembling child in a kingdom that no longer exists. I found her on a road leading away from a battlefield after her parents, simple peasants, were slaughtered. Her elder brother lay dead a half-mile behind, having starved. You think that kid who starved didn't want to eat? You think her parents didn't want to escape the ravages of war badly enough? You think if they'd had more passion, the Cosmere would have saved them? How convenient to believe that poor people are poor because they didn't care enough about being rich. That they just didn't pray hard enough. So convenient to make suffering their own fault, rather than life being unfair and birth mattering more than aptitude, or storming passion. He raised his finger at the last word, and anger spren burst around his feet, like pools of boiling blood, as if on cue. Kaladin didn't know if he'd ever seen Wit so riled up, particularly by something that had nothing to do with their conversation. Though one could never tell with Wit. Non-sequiturs that ended up relevant were the daggers he kept strapped to his boots, to be employed when his foes were distracted. We need hope, Kaladin, Wit said, leaning farther forward. We're heading straight toward what may be the most difficult moment of our lives. So remember, hope is wonderful. Keep it. Treasure it. Hope is a virtue. But the definition of that word is crucial. You want to know what a virtue truly is? It's not that difficult. If this entire conversation is the way I learn, Kaladin said, then I dispute the idea of it not being difficult. Wit chuckled, then stepped back and threw his hands up, anger spren vanishing and glory spren, tiny spheres of golden light, bursting around him. A virtue is something that is valuable even if it gives you nothing. A virtue persists without payment or compensation. Positive thinking is great, vital, useful, but it has to remain so even if it gets you nothing. Belief, truth, honor, if these exist only to get you something, you've missed the storming point. He glanced at Syl. This is where Yasna is wrong about hope, smart though she is in so many ways. If hope doesn't mean anything to you when you lose, then it wasn't ever a virtue in the first place. It took me a long time to learn that, and I finally did so from the writings of a man who lost every belief he thought he had, then started over new. Sounds like someone wise, Syl said. Oh, Sazed is among the best. Hope I get to meet him someday. When you do, Kaladin said, maybe some of his wisdom will rub off. Wit tossed his flute, spinning it, then pointed it directly at Kaladin. Congratulations! You've practiced music, you've listened to a self-important rant, and you've delivered quips at awkward points. I.W. graduated from Witt's School of Practical Impracticality. Syl sat on the couch, though she left no impression in its cushions. She looked completely baffled. Wait, Kaladin said. Does that make me your apprentice? Witt belted out a long, full belly laugh, long enough to be uncomfortable. Cal, he said, gasping for breath, you're still far, far too useful of a human being to be an apprentice of mine. You'd actually end up helping people. No, I've already had one bridge boy as an apprentice, and graduated or not, he's incompetent enough to hold on to the position. I'll have you know, Kaladin said, that Sig is doing a fine job leading the Windrunners. You've been corrupting him, Witt said. No, you're not my apprentice, but that doesn't mean you can't learn a thing or two. A kind of cross-training into uselessness. He said it while thrusting his flute into the air. You're so storming dramatic, Kaladin said. Simply trying to give you the proper send-off, Witt said. We're at the end, Kaladin, and you are needed. I want you to march off to your divine destiny with a spring in your step. I don't know what I'm going to do, though, Kaladin said. War is coming, but I'm not involved. I'm just going to help a maniac return to his senses. That's it, eh? Witt said. Just you becoming your world's first therapist. Kaladin glanced at Syl, who shook her head. We have no idea what that is, Witt. Because, Witt said, you haven't finished inventing it yet. He leaned in. About time someone figured out a method to counteract what I've been doing. Now, practice that flute. Get Roshar to listen. Help Ishar. But know that you're not coming back to aid Dalinar, whatever he thinks. Practice the flute, Syl said. Get Roshar to listen to us. Help Ishar. Don't come back. Exactly, Witt said. Now go. The world needs you, the two of you. More than you, or it, or anyone other than your humble wit yet realizes. The fight ahead of you will be legendary. Unfortunately, you can't fight this one with strength of muscle. You'll have to wield the spear another way. Good luck. With a sigh, Kaladin stood up. Then the most remarkable thing happened. Witt extended his hand and didn't pull back as Kaladin hesitantly took it. Witt gave a firm shake. You know what first drew me to you, Kaladin? Witt asked. You did one of the most difficult things a man can do. You gave yourself a second chance. I took that second chance. Maybe a third, Kaladin admitted. But now what? Who am I without the spear? Won't it be exciting to find out? Witt said. Have you ever wondered who you would be if there was no one you needed to save, no one you needed to kill? You've lived for others for so long, Kaladin. What happens when you try living for you? Witt held up his finger. I know you can't answer that yet. Go and find out. With that, Witt bowed to him. Thank you. For what? Kaladin asked. For the inspiration, Witt said, straightening and looking to Kaladin, then to Syl, then to smiling in a fond, yet somehow regretful way. Kaladin felt a chill. I'm never going to see you again, am I, Witt? No one knows the future, Cal, he replied. Not even me. So instead of saying goodbye, let's call this an extended period of necessary separation, requisite to give me time to think of the most perfect, exquisite insult. If I never get to deliver it in person, well, kindly do me the favor of imagining how wonderful it was, all right? All right. Wit winked at him, then walked over to rap on the door. Dalinar opened it a moment later. Have you finally finished with him, Wit? The man asked. I've been waiting for a storming hour. He's all yours, Wit said, striding away. Remember what I told you. I will, both Kaladin and Dalinar said at the same time. They glanced at each other. Wit, Kaladin called just before the man vanished. What about my story? You will tell your own story this time, Kaladin, Wit said, and if you're lucky, the wind will join in. Then he was gone, his last whistle slowly fading. Did you ever think, Kaladin said to Dalinar, that you'd end up dancing to that man's whims? I suspect, Dalinar said, stepping back and waving for Kaladin to enter. We've been dancing to them for years without knowing it. Come, I have a few things to tell you two before you leave. And that's chapter 4.
All right. Lots of stuff to unpack.
Lots.
I feel like something I caught this time that I didn't the first time. That being this morning, is that Wit telling Kaladin to write your own story, and if Kaladin is writing the epigraphs, or at least part of the team that might be writing it, could be that.
Could be his story.
Mm-hmm. I think that might be. I think it's almost a little bit too obvious. I think it might be a red herring, but never know.
I liked, like we talked about earlier today, I really liked the idea of it being Zeth, because he also had a voice speak to him when he was younger, telling him that the Spren were returning or the Voidbringers or something, and that's what made him truthless. And it's thought that it is a Spren, but it could be the wind, because if the wind could play back Wit's notes with the Way of Kings, well before Odium's vessel change, right? Then the wind could have gotten enough strength, and being closer to Shinovar, being closer to Zeth in Shinovar, could have had the strength to talk with him. That's how I'm rationalizing that. So it could be, but it could be really straightforward.
Yeah.
It could be Sanderson is trying to get the really straightforward bits out of the way, because the rest of this book is going to be a roller coaster in the dark with too many loops and turns.
It's already nuts.
It is already nuts.
There's just so many pieces. Like, I was thinking while you're reading, like, man, like nobody could ever call like what's going to happen. It can't be like some people like to bash in the series and say it's predictable. I think they should open up the stock market and make $1 billion, because if they think this is predictable, man, they must be a genius. Because there's so many things that could happen that are realistic and that abide by the laws that Sanderson has established. Right. So, like, I mean, anything could happen, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
It really does. And he's been foreshadowing the wind this whole time. So,
yeah, it's crazy. I almost wonder if the wind isn't like an entity itself. It's just like a powered up, natural element that maybe like higher Spren, the Night Watcher, the Fuse, Stormfather, all these stuff can like use to kind of communicate throughout Roshar. Because they're not gods. They can't just like I don't even know if gods can like communicate with themselves. Like how would Sazed, I'm saying his name because he's mentioned in this
absolutely
chapter. How would Sazed talk to Odium? Do they just like
very carefully
just put their hand in their ear like hello? Do they write letters like Hoyd does to Frost?
I expect could write letters. I expect there might be a way to reach out in the spiritual realm.
Yeah, there could
Like,
be.
I imagine that would be like, have you ever seen videos of like two microscopic cells, like an amoeba trying to eat something else, and they
Yeah.
just kind of wander around? I think it would be like that, just in essentially interstellar space. You know, Interstellar, when they go into the
Mm-hmm.
that, and they can go into the
Mm-hmm.
fifth,
Mm-hmm.
fourth, is so like that. So they're reaching out,
Okay.
but they don't know where exactly to look, and then the other person may be trying to hide. So that's how yeah. But
I
yeah,
that I'm glad you mentioned Interstellar because I actually had a theory
did you really?
that is similar to that movie's ending.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember, trying to see if I wrote it down or not. I don't think I did.
Spoilers
Yeah,
for Interstellar
we're way
and
we're
Bosmere.
way past it. Okay, yeah. So Interstellar, I mean, it's what 10-year-old movie now. With not
That's
the
one of my
most
favorite
like
movies.
it's not the most unique ending, but it's certainly cool.
No,
Where
it's definitely cool.
yeah, we learned that like one of the characters like somehow went back in time and like had agency to start the story in a way. Kind of weird.
Oh my god.
Um,
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
yeah, but so I had a thought that it'd be so bizarre to see this, and yet if it happened, I like. There's no way that Sanderson would have trouble making this work. But what if Kaladin somehow, talking to Tanavast in the spiritual realm, if my theory is correct,
Okay.
I could see him finding a way to make Kaladin the face of like the rider of storms that they talk about, or like the face of the Stormfather himself.
Okay.
Because there's like that kind of interweaving of the spiritual realm, which is past and future, randomness and chaos and probability.
Okay.
I could like that would be a crazy twist that
would be
I don't even know if I would like or dislike it. I'm just like, that could happen.
Like, I would not like that.
Yeah, you don't think so?
I don't know how I'd feel. That would be time travel is always weird to me.
Yeah. Well, I think he said he wouldn't do that, but
I don't think so.
It's almost like the impression of Kaladin's future is like showing up in the current. And it's just one of those things. It's like, oh man, that was there the whole time. Like,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Going back to the epigraph 3 from chapter 3 with the new storm. Now that we've talked about the old magic. So going off of what we know from the text is that the wind is something equivalent to what the Night Watcher was before it was the Night Watcher.
Mm-hmm.
It is essentially the wind. It is very Spren-like. It was made by Adelnasium, left on Roshar. And so, and then New Storm, right? So I feel like there's a possibility here that what was going on before cultivation and honor and odium came to Roshar, because it was honor and cultivation before odium brought the humans from Ashen. So what I'm thinking is that there was the wind had created the storm. Okay, the high storm. The wind, over time, figured that out. Also, brief tangent, if the wind is in Shinovar and the storm always comes from the other side of Roshar, then the wind could be sending out energy across the back of the planet, and that's how the storm is being created. So that would answer that. Because nobody knows where the storm originates. Anyways. So over time, before honor and cultivation, the wind was building up this storm. Honor and cultivation arrive. Honor's like, that's badass. We're gonna do stuff with the storm. And they make the spren, and the storm starts to become alive and stuff. Then odium, boom. Odium kills honor. Splinter of honor goes into the storm, right? Making it much more powerful than the wind because Odium has locked the wind away. New vessel, like it said, changes the wind's ability to now speak and get more powerful. And like I was saying earlier, you know, if Dalinar ascends, and I think the wind could take over the storm again. The wind could be strong enough to bring the Everstorm and the High Storm together and create a new storm. And in doing so, make it less powerful or like less dangerous. I don't know. That's where my mind is at.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me of like Ruin Preservation becoming Harmony. You have like the High Storm and the Everstorm becoming like, you know,
right?
Honor Storm, something.
Ever higher storm, and it just goes up in the stratosphere. It's just the whole planet is clouds, storm clouds. It's bad.
I did want to mention before I forget the heralds and like the headings of the chapters. We talk about them. Yeah, it's nothing crazy this week. For chapter 3, it's Kellic, which probably just because he's in the chapter, and he is in all 4 slots. The read along mentions that his aspects are resolute and builder, and his role is maker. The only like reachy thing that I can think of is that they're like building plans as they're talking. Okay. Like, okay, we gotta go to Shadesmar. We gotta, you know, find this thing. Yada yada yada. Or not Shadesmar, Spectral Realm. So, got it. Chapter 4 has what they call the wild card, which is just Wit or Hoid.
Yeah.
He's in all 4 slots as well, presumably because he's in the chapter as well. I almost wonder why they wouldn't do like half Kellic, half Hoid, or three quarters Kellic and 1/4 Hoid for Shallan's chapter, because she got a lot more out of that conversation as well.
That's true. I also don't know why they wouldn't put Chenarak in Shallan's chapter, because she's mentioned directly as.
That's just such a tease at that point. It's like, is your theory right?
That would be so funny.
That'd be so funny. Yeah, he's great at trolling, but he does it outside of his books. I feel like.
I think you're
not
right.
In the books,
because nobody would understand.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. But I like tracking it because you never know.
It's really cool. No, definitely worth fun. It. Did we learn anything other than the wind being a pre-spren god? Legit, like according to Wit, god level power. So I mean, Ba Edo Mishram, powerful, right? Because they were calling Ba Edo Mishram a god. At least as powerful as Ba Edo Mishram.
Yeah, and this leads to a lot of theories and questions that I have, and I don't even know where to start. I did text you earlier today asking if we could glean through the past 4 books.
All right. Well, so you were talking to me earlier today about going back through the books.
Yes, going through the books and seeing all the instances where the old magic is mentioned, just to see if it's possible that Sanderson is alluding to not the Night Watcher, but like the literal entity that existed before cultivation, honor, odium came and like kind of made things their own,
or entities,
yeah. And it's interesting. I went back to Rhythm of War, which had I took a screenshot of something there that might have been something, don't remember offhand, but and I went back to the Way of Kings because that was where it started. I figured that's where most of the foreshadowing would be, and that's where we get the Wandersail chapter. And just right off the bat, how many times he mentions the old magic and the Night Watcher in the same sentence makes me think that he's trying to program us to think, oh, when I hear old magic, I think Night Watcher.
Right.
So now this twist here feels much like, whoa, what? They're different? Because Hoyt says, like, yeah, there's the old magic, and then it's also used as a term to the Night Watcher, but he kind of says explicitly, like, they are separate. They're not exactly the same thing.
Okay.
It could be the Night Watcher before cultivation turned her into Night Watcher, but it sounds like there's something more to it, right? Let me pull up these these screen grabs I got.
Yeah.
So it's this is where it gets kind of crazy. Kaladin talks a lot about the old magic, which is weird. If you're thinking that doesn't sound right, it shouldn't. It's not like he's been there. He hasn't heard a lot of stories about it. He just hears like rumblings and rumors, like, oh yeah, I heard these like weird guys talking about this myth of the old magic and the Night Watcher.
Right.
But he's heard it so much, like in the bridge crews and like the camps and the battalions and stuff his whole life, that he just kind of thinks of it as like this legend, like someone in Mistborn Era 2 might think of Vin,
Okay, sure.
And so he thinks that he's cursed because we all know he has Survivor's Guild. He's like, oh, I've got to be cursed by like the old magic or something. Like I must have gone and forgot. Like it's kind of made in jest. It's kind of also just this depressed, like, oh, things are so bad, I must be cursed by the old magic. But what if it's not? What if the whole time it's been the wind nudging him, like, no, go this way, make this move, do this thing, it'll survive you. I need you. And the biggest question is, who, what, why would something need Kaladin alive that bad?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So in the chapter To Kill the Wind, in Words of Radiance, if I'm not mistaken, Kaladin says that he feels like he has become the wind briefly, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And that happens in other places, maybe.
Yeah. Well, he mentions like to Seth and like Words of Radiance that like the sky is my domain, like I am the sky, I am the wind, something like that.
Right. What does he say there?
I don't know. There's another part in the passage you read about how we literally get confirmation that Kaladin can feel the wind nudging him without it saying anything, or like without us hearing that inner monologue. He does feel its presence. Even his wind spren armor spren feel its presence. They're like riding the wind.
Well, even Syl and I would argue Pattern are in chapter 1. Remember I was talking about how Syl was dancing to an invisible beat?
Yes.
Absolutely the wind. Now I was saying it was
couple that with Hoyt's conversation about the tones of Roshar and the wind.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Pattern was kind of doing a little tapping tap with the wind is back, baby. And then
the wind is coming.
in Words of Radiance, you sent him to the sky to die, assassin, Kaladin said, Stormlight puffing from his lips. But the sky and the winds are mine. I claim them as I now claim your life. So,
damn. Yeah.
Right.
That's sick. There was another one in Rhythm of War I thought. This one's just cryptic, and I'm like, ooh, because now that we have, like, again, more, not confirmation, but more nuggets that cultivation is playing a part in this, and we all have our theories about cultivation, but this is a part from Rhythm of War. I think it's an interlude with Lift and Wendell, and I think it's Wendell talking here. So you did see cultivation herself, both you and Dalinar. Mother has been intervening far more than we assumed, but behind a cloud of subterfuge. She uses tales of the old magic to distract and make it less obvious the specific ones she is drawing to her. And we kind of talked about it last week, how it's interesting. She's picked 3 people.
Yeah.
There are 3 shards on Roshar, and each of these 3 people have like conflicts that are thematically in line with those 3 shards.
Yep. That's weird.
It could be nothing, but it's just going back and reading it with this context now, or the subtext, is like, I can't wait to reread the whole series with this.
I know. And then apparently in Words of Radiance somewhere, there's another quote. You could not kill the wind. You could not stop it. It was beyond the touch of men. It was infinite. Like, he's setting it up.
For sure.
He's straight up setting it up. He's just not using the capital W to trick us.
Yeah.
Trixie Sanderson.
There's a lot of
and then one more thing.
Yeah.
In that same, White Spine Uncaged, right before To Kill the Wind, the chapter, right before To Kill the Wind, the great line, Honor is dead. I'll see what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that not a similar situation here where Honor is dead and Kaladin's going to see what he can do with the wind? I mean, is that a stretch? Yes. Could it also be an accurate simile? Also, yes, in my opinion.
Kaladin's been primed to be the new Honor, and I think Wit says in this chapter, like, you have divine destiny, which is like, he uses his words very, very particularly. So it's like, do you know something?
Yep. Right.
Yeah. There was something that I read in the read along earlier, and I'm having trouble finding it, but it sparked an idea in me about Mishram. So some have theorized that Beata Mishram might become something bigger than like a Spren or a Fused, or not a Fused, an Unmade, but like kind of like one of the more higher Spren, like the Stormfather, Night Watcher, sibling, and be able to bond a Bondsmith.
Ooh.
And then we theorized in our or in my theory crafting video with Bookborn and Tudor Ramble and Spencer that I forget who mentioned it. I think it might have been Tudor Ramble or Bookborn that they think Syl might take up the shard because she's like the ancient daughter. She's like the last big sliver of honor aside from the Stormfather. And then it wouldn't be Cal, to be a nice little trickery there.
That would be
a nice bittersweet ending for them both as well. But what if it's Mishram instead that becomes the new honor?
Oh man, that would.
There's something they said as like it sparked something, a connection there for me. But just the way that they're talking about wind and Mishram and honor, like in the same sentences, the connection with how honor and Mishram, something about them caused the Spren to die or turn into dead eyes, right?
Right.
And it almost seems like, well, what if the way they phrase it seemed like the most easiest solution is for Mishram to become the new honor.
Oh, Griff came in at a great time.
Is this connection any better?
It's technically better. Is it good?
Better.
Also, maybe. It is faster.
I mean, that's works, I suppose.
It's sending signals through. We're getting voice or we're getting video. We are getting voice, so that's useful. But
you're not getting video?
No, well, when your voice goes, we don't get the video. Your face freezes. It's kind of funny. But not really. So we were talking about Baital Mishram and how she's going to be the new honor. That was actually revealed in the beginning of chapter 4.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, that feels like an Sanderlance reveal, not a beginning of chapter 4 reveal.
That's true.
She's been honor the whole time.
Yeah,
there we go.
Honor sent a little sliver into Odium to act as a parasite. And then Odium...
Honor...
And I've been here the whole time.
I don't get that reference, but it sounded funny.
It is Game Changer from Dropout.
Oh, okay. Game Changer is funny.
Yes. It is.
Brandon Lee Morgan. Okay. What else do we have to say about chapter 4? Oh, right. You were saying about how Baital Mishram was like connected to everything, and then there's a specific, and it's not anybody saying this. It says that day, the day Mishram had been captured, something deeper had happened. An event connecting humankind, honor, Spren, and the bonds. So I could see how they're getting the connection.
Yeah, I mean, she connected to Roshar.
Right.
People were idolizing her and praying to her, worshiping her as a god herself. Which we've also kind of had other language in here about how the wind got scared not because of odium, but because people started worshiping the storm.
Right.
So it's kind of weird that there's like two of these like stories going along. And then they trapped Mishram. Honor was splintered, and that combination, because they're both connected to Roshar and the Spren, caused the Deadeye.
Say that last part again.
So they're connecting that Ba'ada Mishram being trapped while also Honor being splintered and go bye-bye.
Yeah.
Makes the Spren effed up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking something similar, that when Ba'ada Mishram connected to Roshar and the singers, that she had used a portion of all of the Nile Bond Spren to power her ability to give the singers forms. And then their Nile bonds gave enough strength for them to be normal Spren, but when those bonds broke, they went back, and instead of reverting to a normal Spren, normal intelligence Spren, they had lost that part of them that Ba'ada Mishram had taken from them. That's just my pet theory at the moment.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, so someone else was talking about how, I saw a theory about how like the wind is this element of Roshar, and they were talking about how stone kind of like has memories, and like Bentley can sense that. We know that the Shin kind of revere stone in some way, like it's holy, like you can't step on it or something. I can't remember. What if there's even more of these? Like, what if these are what Odium made, like turned into Unmade?
Like used a portion of his power and then corrupted.
Yeah. Okay. So what if like Ba'ada Mishram is not on the same level as the Stormfather, but closer to the Wind, which is kind of something entirely different than Odium, Honor, Cultivation. You have these like ancient old magics.
Which it could be why Collect says that she would never fade. In chapter 84 or 87 in Rhythm of War, the epigraph is Collect writing.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
I was
chapter 87 epigraph, of course.
Okay, but I was listening how Michael Kramer did Maya Laren's voice so that I could maybe try to do that.
Okay.
So I was listening to that today on the way home, and it happened to be this epigraph, and that's why I know. All right, it's not just like I have encyclopedic knowledge of this.
We know you read it 5 times over. We know you have every word memorized. It's fine.
Actually, it's chapter 84 of.
So he says that they trapped her in a Spren, and they should release her because, unlike trapping a herald, she will never fade. Even though he did say specifically she is a Spren.
Yeah. And there's just so many like this weird hierarchy, right? Like who's at the top? Is it who's at the top? The Wind or Odium, Honor, Cultivation?
I think Odium, Honor, Cultivation are at the top.
Okay, so then Wind would be below them, and then the Heralds.
I would agree. Shards would be at the top.
Shards at the top. Super strong Spren right below them at varying power levels. Like the Thrill is not the same as the Night Watcher in terms of power.
Dude, what if Risen changes the Wind or Ba'ada Mishram into something like better?
Yes. Risen uses the Dawn Shard of Change to make the 2 storms plus the wind into one.
There you go. Confirmed.
Actually,
we don't even read the book anymore. We already know the answer.
No. That is the one thing I will say. Dawn Shards actually sit above the shards of Adonalsium.
Yeah. That's. I would agree. Yeah.
They're kind of in their own bracket.
But that's why I asked, because they're like ancient things, and then Adonalsium came, and then he created the wind and stone, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like, he handcrafted Roshar, so...
I don't know.
He left behind the wind and the...
Yeah. I might put them at, like, the same tier. They're just different.
I feel like Planetary versus Cogmere... I think
so.
They got potential.
Because... Here's the thing that I would say. The fact is, we know that shards can inhabit multiple planets, or at least avatars of shards, because we've seen this with autonomy.
Okay.
And so I would say that since the wind or whatever is a singular being locked to Roshar, they sit below the shards, power-wise.
But they might sit above an avatar of the shards because it was
potentially.
It's
so confusing. I hate this.
It depends. It depends on what it. Yeah, it really depends on the power of avatars, because do avatars contain a lesser degree of power than the shards themselves, or
yes. Or do they just have access to a smaller portion at that time? Like they can
right,
still
they
can channel the power, but at a lesser.
I mean, I think the fact that cultivation touched the Night Watcher and manipulated her, changed her into something that she could use.
Right.
There's a phrase in there that her effects on Night Watch or something. I think just that confirmation means that they're already above.
That's true. That's true. The ability to influence, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't understand either.
Yeah.
Nope.
And the fact that they can directly affect be connected to and influence the investiture of a planet as a whole, I think sets them above a Spren, even a powerful one.
That makes sense.
So I did have two other things I wanted to talk with you guys about.
That's good.
Griff, and I think Griff can speak to both of these too. But okay, so very early on in this chapter 4, we see that Kaladin feels a, quote, dark poison rage building within, the fraternal twin to the normal excitement of holding Stormlight. And we saw last week that there was this hunger for battle within the Knights Radiant. Kaladin said that he felt it himself too, and it's kind of like the antithesis to this, or Stormlight is the antithesis to the Tower Light, right? The Tower Light has this calm presence. Stormlight kind of makes you want to fight. And I thought maybe that the thrill or something like that is coming back. The presence of the thrill kind of inciting those emotions.
We do need, I think the context of this I read as he was looking at the aftermath of the battle and he was remembering that feeling happening during that battle, right?
Yes.
And so what we saw in that battle is that he was being persuaded, he was filled with void light.
Odin, that's right. What I was about to say. What if it was void light? That's exactly actually what was in my brain, because we know that we've seen Lift with lifelite.
Now
and she seems
Kaladin with lifeline or tower light.
Right, we've seen Kaladin with tower light and Kaladin with Stormlight, but with him talking about it being the fraternal twin to Stormlight, I would say that's absolutely void light.
Yeah. And don't we have that unanswered question? Kaladin's eyes were glowing the wrong color, like gold or purple or something.
Odium was influencing him.
Yeah.
Straight
up. He almost became what Odium wanted. And
so
he would tell himself to do that, or to relieve himself of that.
Yeah. And I did think about that, because that was originally how this chapter was read, with him thinking about Teft. But he cut those parts out, which I don't know if that's for the word count or to kind of add to this. There's something else kind of nefarious at play here, just with inciting these emotions. It's probably nothing. I'm probably just looking too much into it. But I never want to be caught off guard with Sanderson, because...
Sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he'll absolutely touch on something from 3 or 4 books ago, just to, tie everything together. We've seen this in the different eras of Mistborn, so...
What?
Yes.
What was the other thing?
The last thing is kind of the thing that makes me the happiest, just kind of something that excites me, is seeing Syl be drawn to Navani.
Right.
I've mentioned in the past that I think the Bondsmiths will have powers related to the different realms. We've already seen how Dalinar can kind of manipulate the physical realm a bit more. And with Navani bonding the sibling who has this huge affinity for Spren, who reside in the cognitive realm, I was wondering, I wonder if someone who bonds the Night Watcher will have cultivation, spiritual realm, more related powers or abilities. And just seeing the Spren love Navani and have that connection again just kind of reminds me of that. Like, I think this is possible and just kind of makes me happy.
Do you think, so you said Dalinar with the physical realm. What makes you say that?
Well, the Stormfather resides in the physical realm.
Sure. But I definitely...
We see how he's connected himself to the land in a similar way that Baumann did to Roshar.
Yeah, that's a good argument. I would also say there's an argument to be made that because Dalinar can bring the spiritual realm and refill
Shadesmar?
and Shadesmar and refill gems with the Stormlight from the spiritual realm, that he may meet that spiritual manifestation, maybe. And then I could also see, because the Night Watcher was something that had already existed on Roshar and then became a bondsmith Spren, that, although, have they ever confirmed that it's the Night Watcher? I thought we were all assuming that.
It's the Night Watcher.
Now, hold on. To break in here, didn't we just see in the previous chapters where Kaladin was saying that this realm suited Syl?
Yeah.
So I feel like if Syl is being drawn to Navani and Syl exists in the physical realm, then that would paint Navani as having a tie to the physical realm, while Dalinar is tied to the spiritual.
But in the Syl being drawn to Navani, she actually loses the purple to become invisible, and she shrinks down to become more Spren-like instead of Baumann-like.
Well, I think all of the bondsmiths will be able to manipulate or like kind of tap into all of them. I just think that their higher Spren have a bigger presence in one of the three realms.
I agree with that. I personally would say Stormfather, Dalinar as spiritual, Navani as cognitive, and Night Watcher as physical. But are we sure Night Watcher?
But the fact is, what evidence do we have that the sibling is tied to the cognitive realm? I mean, the most we know is that the sibling powers Urithiru, which is very directly... I would almost see that the Night Watcher is more cognitive realm because she messed with Dalinar's memories.
Okay, well, I think the sibling, the biggest point here is that her biggest trait that we know about is she has this huge affinity for Spren.
Yeah,
Spren live in the cognitive realm. They can come into the physical, but they reside... Like, even mentioned in these chapters, Syl still has to go back to Shadesmar because she is a Spren, but she likes to be here more because Sanderson is trying to trick the Silladin shippers. I don't know.
Yeah.
But cultivation, as we talked about last week as well, she's all about getting people to change, and I think is to get them to their more ideal selves, which would be a physical or spiritual realm type of idea. So that's why I think the Night Watcher would be linked to that.
Could be. Also, the sibling as Urithiru in the cognitive realm is a marvelous piece of art, essentially, like giant glass tower. So the tower exists in both, right? Like, just adding that in there.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
And I mean, even the idea of light is just investiture, which is also from Shadesmar.
Yeah. Okay, I
well,
see.
Well, no, investiture exists on all three realms. That's how
Shadesmar is presented to us as this is where magic lives.
Sure, wait. Shadesmar is where magic lives?
Cognitive realm, Shadesmar is like
the investiture?
I disagree. The way that people become invested is because cracks in their spirit web are fed investiture by the shards, which is entirely on the spiritual realm.
Yeah, we don't know enough about the spiritual realm to have this conversation, in my opinion.
I mean, I feel... So investiture comes from the spiritual realm, but the living embodiment of the shards, which are also investiture, are the Spren, which are also living in the cognitive realm. So but the investiture is pulled from the spiritual realm when it's.
Oh, you're right. I think you're right. I think you're right.
The gems from the spiritual realm, so the Stormfather itself is also tapping into the spiritual realm to refill the gems. So I really like your theory about each one of them is for each realm. It has like a stronger to each realm. I personally would say Stormfather is spiritual, Nightwatcher is physical. Navani is definitely.
I'm open to being persuaded on that.
I'll persuade every episode. We'll just talk about it. That's all we'll talk about. Forget the chapter. No, I'm just kidding. For those,
you did remind me though that in Rhythm of War, when Dalinar is just like kind of casually combining the three realms together, he keeps like I can't remember if he keeps seeing something or hearing something, but he thinks there's something there, and he asks Navani for help with researching it, and then it's just like ignored for the rest of the book. Is that perhaps Beato Mishram kind of like, hey, I'm here, come save me?
Yeah, it might be.
It's possible, yeah.
I bet that's what they're gonna do in this book, given the back cover description.
Because we didn't get an answer to that, right? Like that was part one, where like this is the question I'm offering you, and I don't think we got the answer to that.
And that was in Rhythm of War, right?
That was like they're on the bridge,
and
they're like fighting, they're having their weird like respect battle. I don't know.
I
respect you. I respect you too.
The thing I love across Sanderson's writing is that he puts in things that don't make sense to make the world feel more realistic, right? Because there's plenty of things in the world that just don't make sense. So that's one of those.
Like people.
Although, and then, like people. I mean, not that we don't have honor battles here, I guess, on Earth, but that's fictional.
Are you talking about samurai? What?
Well, duels of honor in general. Like we have, even fencing in European, countries was...
If you've seen The King with Timothée Chalamet and Robert Pattinson, instead of all of their armies fighting, they, historically they go out and it's just the King of England versus the King of France or whatever it is, and they fight individually instead of everybody against everybody. I feel like that's similar enough to what Lesh
that's very similar.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he wasn't inspired by that.
I wouldn't.
Well, and honestly, I mean, classically, the idea of champions fighting instead of an entire army is a pretty common thing across cultures.
Yeah.
I lied. I have another thing to ask you guys about. Early on in chapter 4, I know there was Kaladin mentions that he needed to save his large sacks of gemstones for the battle to come.
Right.
What battle is he talking about?
Don't know.
He mentions it again later in the chapter for the battle coming with Dalinar. Right. I'm like, which one are you talking about? You're not. Who asked you to be the champion?
He thinks he's coming back. Actually, the way that Wit phrased that, you're not coming back to help Dalinar.
Yes. You're not coming. You will not be coming back to aid Dalinar. Like you are not doing this to aid Dalinar. You need to do this for yourself.
That made me think that he could be coming back to fight Dalinar. Just saying. It's open to interpretation.
Whoa. Shots fired.
Wit knows he's not coming back to aid Dalinar. What did he say exactly? He said...
I interpreted it as, like, live your life, don't do everything for Dalinar. But still interpreted it as, we're not coming back. Okay.
Yeah.
Prepare to die?
But know that you're not coming back to aid Dalinar, whatever he thinks.
It's so cryptic, man. I hate this. Dalinar, so many ways to interpret it.
Dalinar is both podium and honors champion. Commit seppuku.
God,
yeah,
no.
That's how he gets around the whole deal. Is that he becomes the champion of both.
Half of his cognitive shadow goes to lead the Cosmere Odium's forces against the Cosmere. But it's just the bottom half, so it's just legs marching.
So it's just a pair of legs.
Yeah. No, that's bad. It's really bad. That's not going to happen.
That was just his left half.
Yeah.
What do you think about Wit being so open? Like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm a 10,000-year-old alien. Here's my Scion that you've never seen before.
He keeps dropping it. He dropped it in Tress that he killed God. He dropped it in this one that he killed God.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, the addition.
Well, okay, so
him saying that he killed God here was an addition. It was not in the past version.
Here's the thing that I'm going to say about Wit is that I don't actually think, like, I think he knows a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think he knows a lot. However, I don't think he actually knows as much as he kind of indicates that he does, because I think a lot of him being in the right place at the right time to do what he needs to do is based on the fact that he can store destiny.
Right.
And that just kind of guides him to where he's supposed to be, but he doesn't even
store
know
destiny?
Always. It's a theory of mine. I'm not saying that he can't, but we know that there are ferrochemical, what are they called?
Metal mines?
Yeah, the metal mines, thank you. That can store destiny. We know one of the things that they can store in the ferrochemical metal mines is destiny.
Really? What's
and
destiny?
So that we don't know.
Yeah.
There's one of the things that hasn't been explained yet.
I thought it was
theory,
fortune.
however, is no, fortune is a different thing.
Oh, is it? There's identity,
yes.
Fortune. Can you store investiture? Maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, and then maybe destiny.
You can store investiture, and you can store different types of investiture, which is how Wayne and Wax end up with more Mistborn abilities at the end of Medal of Honor. No, not Medal of Honor. What is the last book called?
Lost Metal?
I don't see destiny here. I see fortune, investiture, identity, and connection.
Okay, maybe I was wrong. Actually, look at... It might have been the fact that I was looking at...
I think the fortune, though, works with your theory that you're saying.
The spikes. Yeah. Hold on. Let me look up. I'm on my phone, so this is going to go wonky for a second.
Oh, you think he has a hemalurgic spike?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Maybe, yeah. Why wouldn't he?
Oh, chromium might steal destiny.
Where does it say that?
So...
Spike.
Oh.
Maybe. It's still a theory. It's still a theory, but it might. And so my idea is that destiny and or fortune, potentially both, potentially whatever, as I said, this is still just a working theory, directs you to go where you're supposed to be, even if you don't know why you're supposed to be there, which is why Wit always ends up in the right place at the right time to do what he needs to do.
I thought that was his fortune. I thought that was attributed to that already, but you could be right.
Yeah.
Might be both, might be neither. I mean, I think it might be tied to fortune, but we also know that fortune is applicable in other ways as well.
Yeah.
Despite that, I mean, I believe Wit even says in one of the books, like, somebody asked him, why are you supposed to be here? When he indicates that he's supposed to, and he says, I don't know, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually, in chapter 4 here, he does admit that he doesn't know very much. Contrary to your point, he straight up admits that he doesn't know what's happening.
Right. And so, like, I think he knows a lot on a broad sense, but I don't think he really knows specifically what's going to happen, as cryptic as he tends to be.
We'll see.
Like, I think he knows a lot about the Cosmere as a whole, but I don't think he knows specifically what's going on with Roshar, what Odium's planning, anything like that. I just think he's also old enough to probably know a lot of what's going on in the Cosmere.
Sure.
Like, as concepts.
Yeah.
So I'm going to amend my previous theory about the bondsmiths and the different realms.
Okay, let's hear it.
Just looking at Coppermind, the three components of the three realms are the soul, the body, and the mind.
Okay.
Navani is the scholar, the mind. Dalnar is the Blackthorn, the body, and then we don't know who the soul is yet for Night Watcher.
I see your point. I could be persuaded, but I'm gonna go at the other angle. I'm gonna say Dalinar for spiritual.
Yeah.
Just because of his.
Here's the reason I'm going to break in with Dalinar as the spiritual is because he is trying to move past his identity as the Blackthorn. Himself as the Blackthorn is a past and a history that he is not proud of, and he does not feel was actually his best self.
True. Adolin says when the Blackthorn is needed, he shows up, though. So Dalinar may not be able to get past the Blackthorn. Is what I'm saying. There.
Maybe, but he's also specifically trying to build connections rather than kill people.
Actually, in this case, he is likely going to try to kill somebody.
Well, yes, I know in this specific case. I'm talking about his arc as a whole.
The worst time to be a pacifist.
Again, Trevor, I could be 50. I'm 50% Dalinar for spiritual or physical. You have really.
I could be persuaded. I'm 50 as well.
Yeah, I think it depends on if
it's someone like Adolin, like he's a great duelist. Fine with the body like
for
that.
Straight physical. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know.
Okay, now here's an interesting thing. Just as a tipping point towards cultivation being the body, the fact is, Lifelight is specifically tied to a physical act of eating food, where Stormlight is. I mean, you can breathe it in, but like we've also seen people absorb it as a spiritual thing rather than needing to ingest food to get it back.
And breathing is spiritual. You know, like the whole like meditation, breathing, centering yourself.
And we also here's an interesting question: is lift
a bondsmith
supplied?
Absolutely.
No, I don't like that theory.
No. Oh God, no.
She's a bondsmith squire at most.
Is lift supplied light or investiture by Dalinar tapping into Honor's perpendicularity?
I think she is.
So I think she can burn Stormlight.
She can burn. She just burns light. She doesn't burn anything specific.
Yeah. Can lift use Stormlight? Oh, she can't.
Well, she uses Lifelight. She converts food into Lifelight.
Yeah.
Right.
She can't get Stormlight from anything.
So that even more so, I would say, would touch into cultivation being the physical.
Interesting.
Not a bad idea.
We could talk about this all day.
Oh yeah, we could obviously. I mean, we could honestly be completely and utterly incorrect on this thing with each bondsmith.
Sanderson's just like, there's no relation.
Right, like he could completely dash our theories.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What are you nerds talking about? Like,
wow. All right. Well, I think that is us wrapping it up for the night. We've had a great discussion. Like, subscribe, follow everywhere you listen to podcasts and watch on YouTube. We really appreciate it. For the 7% of you who have made it to the end of the video, you're our 7%. You're our kind of person.
Yeah.
So give yourself a little fist bump. You made it through the 2 hours. And Griff, start to sign us off.
All right. Until next time, don't panic, World Hoppers.
Life before death, strength before weakness, and
ad nauseam before destination.
That's a good one.